My name is Jacqueline Byrd,
I'm Carlos J.Byrd.
and we have recovered from sickness.
Deep sickness.
We've been married 27 years. Carlos, we were married 14 years, and
Right.
Carlos, I was already at work, and Carlos texted me and said, I'm not going to go to work today. I'm not feeling good. And I said, okay, just chill. Didn't think nothing of it. 2 weeks later, he texted me and said the same thing. And I said, Carlos, that doesn't sound right. He's been a meat cutter for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Ever since we've been married and before. So I said, Carlos, that doesn't sound right. Why don't you go to the walk-in clinic? And he was like, nah, I'm good. I was like, go to the walk-in clinic. Our oldest daughter lived with us, and so I told her to take him to the walk-in clinic. Do not accept no, take him there. Because I know him. He would just put it off and be like, I'm fine, like most men would do. He went to the walk-in clinic. They diagnosed him with congestive heart failure. They wanted to take him immediately to the emergency room by ambulance, which by doing so, he would be first seen. He didn't go that route. My daughter took him to the hospital. He had to wait maybe 3 hours. They confirmed that he had congestive heart failure. They also indicated that he had renal failure, end-stage
disease, yeah.
kidney disease. And the weird thing about it, they requested some of his doctor records. His kidney was failing for the last 3 years. His doctor
Wow.
kind of ignored it, basically ignored it. And there was nothing we can do at that point. We couldn't do anything. Our hands were, they were tied.
Nothing to help the kidneys recover after that point. They were already what they call the end-stage renal disease, where they were just gone. So at that point, I was at the hospital, and we called Jax. I told my daughter, tell Jax I'm okay to take her time, because I didn't want her driving nervous to the hospital. So, and from there, it was like a blur. They had to put an emergency port in right above the heart, so they could start what they call dialysis, taking the fluid off me. The congestive heart failure had got so bad that the fluids had built up on my body, on the inside, and it was choking all my internal organs.
Wow.
And so they said I was like 3 days away from dying, period.
Basically, they said if he didn't go to the hospital, he wouldn't have lasted more than 3 days.
Wow.
So I just thank God that he just impressed upon me to tell him to go to the walk-in clinic, because
Yeah.
Carlos is never sick.
Right.
Well, everybody gets sick. So
Right.
he had little minor aches and pains, but
Right.
it was nothing to keep him from going to work. And the fact that he mixed work twice, I was like, yeah, something's not right.
Right.
So they put in an emergency port through the heart. Then they attempted to put in a permanent port in one of his arms.
Right.
Went through the surgery and all that. It didn't work.
So they
So-
had to try it again. They kept going. They finally got the graft to take, because that's what they call your lifeline. Because when you go on dialysis, one line takes the blood out, takes it through the machine, cleans it out, and the other line puts it back in. So you got one needle that goes in this way, and another needle that comes back in that way. And one, like I said, takes it out, cleans, and the other one puts it back in. And that was 3 times a week for 4 hours,
Dialysis.
for 4 hours at a time.
Yeah. So he was drained. He couldn't walk. He lost everything. He lost muscle. He lost strength. He didn't even sound the same. He sounded like he was 90-something years old.
Wow.
When he talked, it seemed like it took everything in him to get words out. But the doctor asked us if we were interested in a kidney transplant, and we said yes. Once again, we thank God that he was to qualify for a transplant, they have to check you from head to toe. If you don't qualify, they say, why waste a kidney on you? If you already have cancer, if something's going on, we're not going to waste a kidney on you. So while they were testing him, they test everything to make sure you don't have anything wrong. They checked his kidneys. Well, he had cancer in his kidney, so they had to remove that.
One kidney, the right kidney first.
And so while they were checking that, once they removed the cancer, it didn't spread anywhere else. They did all kind of tests, but then it was time to check the other kidney again. He had cancer in that kidney, so he was walking around with no kidney.
Yeah.
Wow. None at all. And the nurses, they said, we've heard of patients like this, but we've never had a patient. They didn't realize that you just skip the step of going to the bathroom. You don't go to the bathroom if you don't have kidneys. You just don't.
You don't go. And I was on a strict regimen of 8 ounces of water per day. That includes your food, so that was really
8 ounces of water.
8 ounces of water.
And y'all were married during this whole time, right?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
we were married 14 years when this happened.
Wow.
And so while he was going through that, like, how was you able to continue to support him and things? I mean, y'all been married for a while.
27 years now.
We was married 14 years when that happened.
Yes. It was challenging at first because when Carlos was on dialysis, this is when we first started working from home 1 day a month. So I had to go to work 35 minutes, come home at lunch 35 minutes, take him to dialysis, and then go back to work, then pick him up from dialysis, and then go back home. So I was driving 4 hours every day until he was able to drive himself to dialysis, which took about 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, she was
So,
a trooper, I'll tell you what.
It was taxing on the mind, the body, but I just kept leaning on God for strength. I continued to go to a gym because that's where I get my strength from. It's not just physical for me, it's mentally for me too. So I like the gym. I just hit the gym. That helps me to just kind of clear my mind out. So God gave me the strength to handle everything that needed to be done because we had one daughter here. The other 2 kids, they were in Illinois. So my daughter took Thursdays off. She took them on Thursdays. I took them Tuesdays and Saturdays. So it worked out. But it was very challenging. It was difficult because I became everything, the provider, the chef, the maid, everything. I had to do everything. Carlos could not do anything.
See, up until that point, I used to do all the shopping because I'm a meat cutter. So I was in the store, so quite naturally, I would plan all our meals. That's when we had the family and everything.
Right.
I would plan the meals because I'm in the store. I know what sales was happening. I know what,
Yes.
I would do that, and plus I would cook too anyway. So I would do all that. So all of a sudden, she got thrust into the limelight of having to do all of that.
Everything. Plus cooking and going to the grocery store.
Which is not her cleaning. Cooking is not. We had always had this one deal. She liked cleaning. I like cooking. So I would cook and she would clean. I mean,
it worked out.
It was a match made in heaven.
Right.
And I do laundry, so that was no big deal. I was used to doing laundry anyway. So
I think that's what helped the process to be so smooth is because for that first 14 years that we were married, Carlos took care of everything. He just worked 6 to 2. By the time he would get off of work, I didn't get home till like 4:35. He would have dinner started. He would have clothes in the laundry. The kids would be home. He would make sure they have working on their homework. I didn't really have to do anything. Just go to work, chill, come home, eat. He had everything taken care of. So it was my turn to step up, and he just made it easy. I just figured it was my turn. He's been doing this all along, so naturally, I need to do it without complaining.
and she did. I mean, it was like, wow. I'll tell you what, if we hadn't had a foundation in God, I don't know how we would have made it.
Me either.
Because it was, we just knew it was nothing but the hand of God that was on our lives from the beginning, from day one.
I totally agree. Even though Carlos made it easy for me to transition to that role, I know for a fact that if it wasn't for God, we wouldn't have been able to handle that process as smooth as we did. Because, I went to the gym a lot, and there were times that I would go to a gym and I would see all these big, strong men, and then I would see my husband, muscles, just kind of depleted.
That part. I was like 5'10", okay, 5'9" and a half.
Short.
5'9" and a half, over 300 pounds. And, I was an amateur athlete. I wrestled, I played football, and I wrestled. I wrestled all around the world and stuff like that. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. My brother, he wrestled in the Olympics, and I trained him. I trained our son. He was good, and
He didn't like it.
he made it to state. He was in the state finals, and he didn't even like wrestling.
Right.
So it shows you, But anyway, and so I kind of stayed in shape because I would go back. We had a thing at the high school. All the guys that wrestled or played football, we go back. We play on the football team. We run the chain game for the umpires. We make sure the first line, first down line markers and all that. And then wrestling, we go back and wrestle with the kids and stuff like that. So I was always, pretty much in shape. As a matter of fact, we met walking on the track. That's how we actually met at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in shape, man, to go from that to basically nothing. I had weights at the house where I would lift, I kept myself together. And that's what she was telling the story about, how I went from that to losing all my muscle mass, my bone mass.
We have this bar at home that he used to use for his curls. I think it's 60 or 65 pounds. Well, I use it for squats, but that's what he used to use to get his arms so big. But yeah, all of that kind of went down the tube when he got sick. But that's material things, you don't care about that. We didn't know if he was going to live or die.
Right.
The doctors, they would come in and just give me all this information, and it was overwhelming. We had to just trust God, and I would talk to his aunt, who's a dialysis. She was a dialysis nurse, but we just had to trust God to get us through this process because it was challenging and difficult.
And my aunt used to tell her, "Don't let him be lazy. Make sure because she was the first one to actually point out that the caregiver goes through more, or if not, as the one who needs the care, because they have to put up with not only seeing the person they love go through the traumatic thing, but they also got to keep the house going, got to keep everything going,
and
everything moving.
Yes.
Yeah, and my aunt was the first one to point that out to us because we had never been around nobody that had actually been sick like that. I mean, my grandma and stuff was sick, but I never did really think about it in that terms.
Right.
But my aunt told her, "Don't let him be lazy. Make sure he do this and he do that. He can do this. He can do that." She made sure, because she always said that she's the best thing that ever happened to me. She is. She is.
Y'all mentioned foundation earlier, and I think that it's a great segue into what we're talking about now. My next question is, David, before he fought Goliath, right? He had the lion and the bear, and then he had all other type of things that he dealt with. So in 14 years, I'm sure some things transpired that prepared y'all mentally, spiritually, and emotionally for Mr. Carlos to have that huge health scare. So what are some situations y'all could really put y'all finger on and say that prepared us?
I would say 9 months into our marriage, I think it was like 9 months in, my mom and aunt died in a car accident where they were they got carjacked by a gang of youth in our own backyard where we lived as a kid.
Centerville, Illinois.
Right across the river from St. Louis, Missouri, as a matter of fact. And they got carjacked. They was coming back from a holy convocation. It was the first time it was on the East St. Louis side of the river. And my mom, she was a state mother, and my auntie, they were both evangelist missionaries. So it was the first time they were, like I said, the convocation was on the east side, and they came home. They got out of the car, and the kids, carjacked them, made them get back in the car, hit them with the gun and all that stuff. But I don't want to go through that part, but they took them off, and they crashed the car into a tree, and my mom and aunt died pretty much instantly, and the kids lived, but she was by my side through that, and it was only 9 months into our marriage. And to have her by my side to pray for me, just to be by my side. Everybody that saw us thought we had been married for years, and we were only 9 months in, but to have her be there like that, I mean,
But
Can't put that in the word.
honestly, I really felt like we were still on our honeymoon. We didn't have anything drastic going on, to us individually outside of our family, but I felt like we were still on our honeymoon. Carlos and I met. We got married in a very short time. We only dated 7 months, and we got married in 7 months. And I was like, oh, I hope it stays like this. And I promise you, from that day until he got sick, I felt like I was still on my honeymoon. It was so easy to be married to him. And I know it was the grace of God, because prior to marrying him, I got married the first time at 18, and I was married to my ex-husband 10 years, and he was mentally and physically abusive. And I know that I still had some of that residue in me. I felt insecure because I was telling you, I had 3 kids in a row, and I gained 85, 75, and then 35 pounds with them. So when I first married my ex-husband, I weighed 132, and after I had 3 kids, I think I was like 320. I didn't know because I didn't get on a scale, but I used to wear a size 26. And he used to tell me things that, nobody would want you. You're 300 pounds with 3 kids. So I know that I still carry some of that with me. And the fact that Carlos was so giving, so loving, he put me first. He would do without to make sure I had what I needed. The exact opposite. He took care of me and my 3 kids like they were his kids. He never called them his stepchildren. He took care of them like they were his kids. My oldest daughter, to this day, they act alike, they look alike. They were just so close. And I just thank God for that. And I think all of that helped me to step up when he got sick.
How did you guys find the mental fortitude? Like, you said that you went from being you trained people for your brother went to the Olympics, you traveled all around the world to wrestle, and then you also you just talked about how you were in a mentally abusive relationship. So it would seem like these things happen and your mental stability would go down, but it seemed like it just strengthened when the major health scare happened. So where did that come from? Where did that mental fortitude come from?
It was only God. It was only God who kept me. Because I'm gonna tell you, I have to go back to my ex-husband so you can see where I came from. There were so many times that I lived in Illinois and I worked in Missouri, so I had to drive across the bridge to go to work every time. There was so many times the devil would tell me, just go on and drive into that in the Mississippi River, because when you go home, you're going to get beat. This is going to happen. That is going to happen. But if it wasn't for my 3 kids, I probably would have did it. But it was God that kept putting my kids before me to say no, because if something happened to your kids, you're going to leave them with this abusive person. So it was God that kept my mind, that kept me, even before Carlos and I got married. Even when I was a child, God kept me. He always had his hand on me. One time I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and we went to this house. I didn't really know where we were going, but we went to this house. When you walked in the house, it was pitch black. They locked the door like 20 times. I'm like, okay. They started passing this pipe around, and they thought I was stuck up because I was like, no, thank you. I was like, just get me out of here, God. If you get me out this place, I promise I would never come back here again. The very next day, the house was raided. Everybody went to jail. God spared me. He always had his hand on me. He always gave me the fortitude to move forward. Even today, I have to stay in his word. I have to stay in prayer and worship, because the enemy still tries to attack my mind. But I've recovered from all of that. I know God. I know where my strength is from, and it's from God. I know he's the only one who's kept me.
Wow.
And I want to say, if you ever need to take a second, this ain't something we got to rush through. You get what I'm saying? Like, y'all got time to gather yourselves. Because we talking about some heavy stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if you want to proceed right now, I have a question.
No,
I'm good.
Sure.
All right, cool. So, we keep coming back to, our strength comes from God, the mental fortitude came from God, things like this that are very necessary in every marriage. How have you grown together in God? Do you read the Word together? Do you pray together? Like what is that? If we could be a fly on the wall in y'all's house, right? What would the routines look like as far as prayer and worship?
I think we have our different
Separate
routines.
about
Now, when
how-
did that start though? Before you answer that, how long have y'all had separate routines? Did y'all start together and it was like, nah, we just gonna do it our own?
We every once in a while we will pray together.
Yeah, right.
But we know, and especially when we came here, I think it got stronger, that we need our own personal, individual
Time
relationship
with God.
But even before we came here, we were doing our own thing. I have in our third bedroom, which is my grandson's room, so that's my prayer room. I go when I get up in the morning, grab my phone, read my word, and I pray. I listen for God's instructions, but yeah, it's a one-on-one thing. Now, when there's something going on and we want to come in agreement, yes, we'll come together in agreement, but we have our own quiet time with the Lord.
Yeah. Now she's like a literal person. So when you say prayer closet, that means prayer closet to her. For me, it means just me listening to the Word, reading the Word, or going through the Word. Since I've been here, I learned to take a deeper dive into the Word because people used to call me a know-it-all. I was a news junkie and all that. And I found out that Lord told me, why don't you take a deep dive through my Word? I bet you won't be a know-it-all when I get done. which he was right. But I got a deeper understanding with the Lord when I got sick, trust me. Because sitting in there in dialysis for 4 hours, I would ask the Lord just to, to walk me through things. Because you barely can see the end. You would see people walk in good as day. I mean, walking in there, having a good time talking to you. The next week you see them, they bring them in an ambulance, and they can't even look at you. They can't even say a word. I never went through that type of thing while I was on dialysis. I was, like she said, in 3 or 4 months, I was able to drive myself. And I would always ask the Lord, I said, Lord, I know I don't see I personally can't see the end in my brain. I would see people, how can people come through this and see the end? And I never saw myself where I am now, but I did see myself being a better me through the Lord. That was one of my things, and I wanted to be a better husband for her because I knew she deserved the best. The Lord told me, I gave it to you now. You make sure you keep care of her, So that helped set a base too, and helped bulk me up a little bit as far as the Word goes. Because I ain't bulky no more like I used to be physically. So I had to bulk myself mentally. So, yeah.
And also for me, worship. I had to stay in worship. When Carlos got sick and when he started driving himself to dialysis, I just started worshiping, putting on my music, and I started painting the house and just worshiping. And I could just feel God strengthen me through worship.
Yeah.
So that's where I got a lot of my strength from as well.
She's my personal prayer warrior, man. This woman can pray, boy. I be impressed by her praying. I can pray, but she's a prayer warrior. She goes in, like she said, in worship. I'll do deep dives. I want to know the reason why things are like it is, or things happen. But she goes into it with prayer. That's how she was saying that's the way we're different as far as how we do how we come to agreement. But like she said, when we decide like big things, we're going to come in agreement before we make a move with God together, because that's the main goal.
So if you could give one more piece of advice to those who are looking to recover from their mindsets, from, you know, feeling like, okay, I'm sick, I can't get out of this, like give them some practical, you know, tips to,
Have we already listed the things that y'all overcame?
kind of.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I mean, it's a lot, but you know, for the most part, that's,
It was all sickness. Carlos had 10 surgeries in about 10 years.
yeah,
And
yeah, major surgery.
when we came here
Major surgery.
almost 3 years ago, he had surgery that year, but he has not had to have any kind of surgery since then. So
Yeah, praise
we just thank
yes,
God
praise
for that.
God. Yeah.
But you got to stay in the Word. You have to
Yes.
trust God, and you have to just pray the scriptures on healing and just trust God
Yeah.
and just seek Him.
Yeah.
Because if you trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, don't try to understand it.
Right.
Don't try to figure it out, because you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
I do like to figure things out, but until I read that scripture, I know that I can't try to figure it out. I can't try to understand it. I just have to trust God, because He is the one that keeps us. He is the one that's going to bring us through this. And if it wasn't for Him, I literally think, they say you don't have breakdowns anymore, but I literally think that I was on the verge of a mental breakdown when I was in my 20s. But it was only God who kept me, who regulated my mind. That's not just a cliche. That's not just something. I promise you, when I say, y'all, the enemy tried to take me out so many times. I know God has something in store for me. I don't know what that is, but the enemy tried to take me out. Even when I was a little girl, I was sleeping on the top bunk, and someone came in our house, and I called his name out. I said, Richard. It was our neighbor across the street. He ran out the back door. The door was still open. My parents thought I was making up the story, but I know the enemy tried to take me out so many times, but he wasn't able to succeed, because God had His hand on me. So God has always had His hand on me and has always kept me. So I don't know. Without Him, I would have lost it a long time ago.
I would say the same thing too, because you're not always gonna. You're not going to see the end when you're going through sickness or anything. You're not going to see the end. But if you holding on to God, you don't have to see the end, because you know He's going to get you through it, no matter what. No matter how it's going to turn out, He's going to get you through it.
And the golden rule: treat your spouse the way you want to be treated. You know, when you say your vows, sickness and health, do you really think about it? I didn't really think about that, because you think it's just something you say when you get married, but really through sickness and through health, are you going to be there? Do God want you to run out? I didn't have examples. My mother had 12 kids by 8 different men that we guessed. I didn't have examples. My father was not around. People just, if they didn't like it, they would hit the door. If something didn't meet their expectations, they would leave. So it was only God that put that desire in my heart to do what His will, do what His word tells us to do, through sickness and through health. You got to depend on God for everything.
Amen.
If you want to make it.
Amen.
You can't lean on your own understanding or to your own strength or your own education or your own anything. You got to trust God for every single thing.
Amen.
Wow, that's it.
Well, one more thing.
Okay.
So, and we could probably put this somewhere in the clip, but when you say stay in the Word, could you like paint a picture of yourself when you were staying in the Word, what that would look like, just in case someone who sees this is a new believer or they're not really church, you know, they don't know what that means. You feel what I'm saying?
I learned this from Apostle. No, if I'm at home cleaning up, sometime I'll just turn on the Bible app and listen to it. If I'm taking a bath, I may start out with something else, but then I always end with the Word. Whatever I'm doing, I try to get that Word in. When I'm working, especially on Wednesdays, I start working on Wednesdays at 5:15 a.m. So it's quiet. I'm just done with my prayer and my worship, so I just let the word play for a couple hours. Sometimes I'll just let it play for 4 hours because I work from home, so I can do what I want and I can, I can have the word. So constantly stay in the word. And sometimes I literally read the word, but most of the time when I'm working and doing other things, I just let it play. Just let it play and let it get in my spirit. When Carlos works night, I turn the TV on YouTube and just listen to the word. Just get the word into you every whatever means necessary. Every opportunity you can, get in the word. It will be a matter of life and death. Really,
That
it
word
is.
will come back through your heart. You don't know just how much it gets into your spirit until something happens, and
Right.
the word you read or you heard it just come out through you, and that's the way you'll live it and get through it.
And
It's
so,
amazing.
and that's why when we were going through these things, I was able to lean on many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord would deliver them out of them all. That means we're going to go through things, whether it's sickness, whatever it is, we're going to go through things. But guess what? God's got our back. He's going to deliver us. He's going to make a way for escape. He's not going to leave us, and He will never forsake us. He's going to work it out for our good. And He has done just that.
Amen. Amen. I am Carlos.
And I'm J.Byrd.
And through Jesus, we have recovered. For me, I'm a jokester, true enough. And she's always serious. Boy, but when she crack one on me, it's like I die.
It's very rare.
Because she's always so serious. And she'll hit me with it out of nowhere. And oh man, and I die laughing. It just cracks me up. We could be like driving somewhere, and she drives now wherever we go if we going together, because I can take her driving more than she can take mine.
It's true. But let me tell y'all why. Carlos is 7 years older than me. And so I tell him all the time he drives like a 70-year-old. He drives really slow. And in Florida, you
That's
gotta...
mean.
But she was right at that point. At that point, she was right.
He drives like an old man.
At that point, at that time, I did. But
So I just like to drive because
You're recovered now, huh?
yeah, man. With the foot man, like I used to when I was a kid.
that means he's going to speed limit.
Wow. Yeah. We've had some hilarious moments, like with the kids. And I taught them the joy of tripping people. I would trip people forward. I would trip people sideways. I would trip people backwards. One time, me and my brother was waiting at a Chinese place, and I tripped my brother, and he fell into.
See, he's the jokester, not me.
He fell into the counter and the Chinese.
What the Chinese people said?
He tripped you. Oh, I can't help it, man. I taught them the joy of tripping people. Boy, I tell you what. I'm close to teaching the grandson, but I say I better not.
Yeah. You gotta do something with that.
I don't want to be the bad grandpa. I said I better not. It's right there. It's like, yeah, I want to teach you so bad, but I said I better not.